I'll give you this. Maybe the Pacers rebuilt a little of the confidence they've lost over the last dozen or so games. I don't think Miami lost any confidence against the Pacers because in the end, big picture, fourth quarter, Miami blew that game more than the Pacers won that game. And to your point, I take nothing away from their defense, especially from Paul George, who did do a very good job defensively on LeBron throughout the fourth quarter. But remember, LeBron did not rest in the fourth quarter. He didn't take his usual 5-6 minutes off. He played all 12 minutes of that quarter. The last 9 minutes, I will repeat, he scored 3 points and had 2 game-changing turnovers, one that produced the Evan Turner breakaway the other way for the 2 points that cut the lead back from 4, I think, to 2. Remember, Miami went into the fourth quarter with a 7-point lead. And I also remind you that with 3:23 left, Miami led by 4. Your 4-time MVP has to close that deal, and he could not last night. And then my final point, and I'll hand it to you, is the game wound up swinging on 2 3-point shots that the refs blew. The first by Dwayne Wade, in which they said that he stepped on the end line, stepped out of bounds, and he did not step out of bounds, and it ripped about as cleanly as you can rip a 3-point shot. And then the final dagger 3 came from none other than David West, who had attempted 12 all year and made only 3 all year. So he made his 4th 3 of the year because he was desperate at the end of a shot clock, and according to Jeff Van Gundy, and I couldn't really see this on the replays, but Jeff is sitting with a bird's-eye view of this at courtside, that David West shuffled his feet to get his feet clearly behind the 3-point line. Hence, it's a travel, and you have to call that if you're a referee. Even if it's at Indiana, you have to call that. Well, I'm just saying.
It's still a violation.
Why aren't they calling that, Antonio?
Come on, take your homerism hat off now.
If we're calling that, then we need to go back and look at LeBron. Every time he catches the ball, he travels. If he's running, one time I saw he took 3 steps and he was like, oh, my God, I'm going to take a 4th. I better pass it ahead. This guy travels every single time. But, no, you're right. You definitely have to call that. I'm just joking.
Okay, so your big picture takeaway was?
My big picture takeaway was, from beginning, the Pacers have said from beginning of the season, we have to get home court. They just proved that this is why it's important, because we believe with our young minds that if we have that Game 7 in Indiana, we have a better chance at winning the Eastern Conference Finals. And they proved that last night. Regardless of how it went down, the final result was they won. Now, Ray Allen wasn't there, which scares the crap out of me, because late in games, big time, LeBron struggles when you can't keep that floor spread. If Ray Allen's in the game, that floor is spread. If D-Wade doesn't get hurt, that floor is spread. With 3 minutes left, D-Wade's not there. You know, this guy's not there. Bosh is, Bosh hadn't, in the beginning of the game, he hadn't hit a shot. First 6 minutes of the game, he was 0 for 3 or whatever. But so I think the Pacers did what they were supposed to do: win a game, win a tough game at home, shake themselves out of this struggle that they've been having. So I like what they did overall. It's just show, hey, when it comes down to it, if we get blown out in Game 2 on the road or Game 3 on the road, we can come back and win a Game 4, Game 5.
To your point, they sounded relieved.
Oh, for sure.
All 3 of those guys, because they knew that if this lead in the Eastern Conference for that top spot got down to 1 game, with 10 games to play for them and 12 for Miami, because Miami has 2 in hand, believe me, the Indiana Pacers, to your point, Antonio, they talked long and loud, strong and proud about if we had Game 7 last year in the Eastern Conference Finals, there's no way we would have lost. What last night told me was they don't believe they can go and win a Game 7 on the road in Miami. And here's another factor that a lot of people aren't talking about. Let's look at if form holds in the playoffs. Miami's road will include the Charlotte Bobcats. Not an easy team to play because Mr. Jefferson, Al Jefferson, is getting it done. That guy should be second-team All-NBA. He's been that good at the center position. Kemba Walker can make some shots. But then they play the winner of the Toronto-Washington series. Young teams are not going to handle Miami. They have an easier path to the Eastern Conference Finals. You look at the Indiana Pacers. Now, whether they play Atlanta, New York, they're going to win that in 4 or 5 games. Then they have the winner of the Brooklyn Nets Chicago Bulls series. The Chicago Bulls play like somebody's trying to steal their lunch money of their woman. That's how they play on defense. And the Brooklyn Nets have Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, and Darren Williams is playing like that Darren Williams that we saw when he played in the Olympics in 2008 and also the Utah Jazz. That series is going to take a lot out of the Indiana Pacers, no matter what the end result is, if it's 6 games or 7 games. When they get to the Eastern Conference Finals, they're going to be a mentally and physically tired team if form holds. So by that kind of road, if they didn't have Game 7 at home, there's no way they would believe they can go into Miami and win a Game 7. Their fail-safe is, if we have Game 7, it's going to be okay. Bankers Life Fieldhouse will be fine.
Just for their psyche.
Just for their psyche. Exactly. Just for their psyche. Miami knows they can go in there if everything is on form. If Ray Allen is there, if Dwayne Wade is healthy, and LeBron is not going to give it off to Chris Bosh with 2 seconds left down the stretch. They know they can go in and win Game 7. Okay. Indiana, based on their reaction last night, they knew if there was a Game 7 in Miami, we would not be able to go in there and beat that team. Maybe next year, but not this year.
And Miami definitely lost that game. I mean, they don't usually have 18 turnovers.
No. Right.
Yeah.
They don't usually, they don't usually struggle down the stretch. They make plays. So I definitely agree. But
Freddie, if you're right about heaving sighs of relief after that game, they might have been premature, because I am not yet convinced that the Pacers can win home court through the rest of this regular season.
That's fair.
Because I look down the schedule and I say, you still got to play the Spurs. You still have to go to Oklahoma City. And then all those tough Eastern Conference teams you're talking about, they have to go to Washington. They have to go to Cleveland, who can be dangerous at home, as they were against Detroit last night.
Right.
They go to Toronto. They go to Minnesota. They even go the last game of the regular season to Orlando. And they're Jekyll and Hyde, because at home they can be really tough. They beat Oklahoma
Harris
City.
And all those guys, exactly.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, are you sure that the Pacers can now get right back on the roll and close the deal? I'm not sure about that.
I'm not sure either, because if you take a sigh of relief and breathe a little bit, you're right. Because DeMar DeRozan, Kyle Lowry, they're playing to show people that they're not just the Toronto Raptors of old, that they can't play. That backcourt is really, really good, and Dwayne Casey's done an outstanding job. He will have them ready no matter what happens, but their path to get to the Eastern Conference Finals, if form holds, will be a lot more difficult than Miami's path.